Lauter, and I'm an art writer for ArtNet News and Art News. And I have the honor of talking to you guys today about the market trends, art market trends, with Sophie Neuendorf, who is ArtNet's vice president and also a board member of the gallery Neuendorf. And next to her is Jelena Kristic, the founder of her own advisory, Kristic Advisory, which is an art consultancy firm that emphasizes connoisseurship in the collection and promotion of fine arts. And you have offices in New York and in Paris. So this talk is going to focus on the market, as I said. So I wanted to just give a brief kind of set the scene. ArtNet just released its intelligence report that showed the art market is up slightly, right? And we've heard lots of reports reflecting this. But there's still still very uneven. So it's a little early to talk about a recovery. And there are some areas that are doing well and others not so much so, which we'll get into. And on that note, I wanted to mention and start with the global conflicts that are happening at the moment and how they may be impacting market trends, especially with what we're seeing in the Middle East right now, in an area that has presented a lot of, promise and potential for the art market, and now there are a lot of questions about the future of the art scene there and what we can expect. But how do you guys think that conflict, as well as the war in Ukraine, are impacting art market trends? Let's start with that, if you would like. If you have any, who would like to start?
Happy to start. I was just now in Doha, just literally days, like maybe a week or two before the conflict properly started. You could feel the tension in the air, and I was, there were a lot of questions about whether or not I should go and whether others were going or not going, but in the end, I'm so happy that I did go and that I got to know that area of the Middle East a bit better after having been in Saudi Arabia and Jeddah for the Biennale of Islamic Art last year and also in Al-Ula. And I just think that area is so exciting, and there's so much purpose, and also fortuitously, the financial possibilities to actually put into motion the dreams that they have and the plans that they make. And I think this conflict is temporarily going to put some of that on hold, but I do think it's temporary. I think it really long term, that area, and also Asia, Southeast Asia, is going to be an area that is going to be very promising for the market and also for creativity.
Yeah, I basically agree. And I would also say that in terms of how these broader global events affect the art market in particular, I think it's more psychological than it is anything else. But psychology translates to being more willing or less willing to spend money. So you definitely see that any kind of instability in the world translates to an interest in more established things at market. So I think that feeds into the current trend that we're seeing of what people call a flight to quality, which can be equated to a flight to gold, but it's also just people trying to find stability in a world that's more and more unstable.
Yeah, we actually wrote a little bit to each other before this meeting about trends that you're noticing, and I think one of the biggest trends is what you just mentioned, which is this turn towards more established, more historical artists, and away from what is the next hot speculative young artist. Sophie, would you like to talk a little bit about your experience in terms of that? phenomena?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the ArtNet intelligence report that we just mentioned, that was just published, that definitely the numbers definitely support this trend towards investing more into quality rather than, let's put it this way, speculative hype. I feel like last year the numbers suggested that it was post-war and contemporary art that was gaining more traction and that was translating more into sales. I think in 2024, I want to say 2025, it was Impressionist and modern works that were more popular. Old master paintings are gaining traction. So you're really seeing, I want to say a systemic shift towards works that have a seriousness and a quality to them, and I think this really translates into more disciplined bidding and financial backing towards those genres, where you can see, for example, ultra contemporary works that for the past, I want to say 4 years since 2021 have declined, and also in the 2025 was the only category that continued to decline, whereas all other categories for the first time since 2021 actually appreciated. So I do think that the move has been towards more quality rather than speculative hype and quantity, for sure, in a market that's a little bit choppy. Yeah.
And so that's definitely the positive spin on what we've been seeing. And I think, Jelena, you were also thinking about what were some of the benefits to this change, and how it changes the behavior of your clients and of collectors, and what you're seeing in that sense.
Sure. Some of the benefits to a more art historically interested approach to collecting is, of course, that people are interested in what the work means and how it fits into the broader art historical dialogue. That's always welcome for, I don't know, people like myself who who like art history. But what it also does is spur, if collectors are interested in this, it spurs others to be interested in it. So I think that's just a positive. This trend, however, has been impactful in a sort of negative way for younger artists and for younger galleries. But I hope, because some of the most knowledgeable people about art history are artists themselves, and I hope that this turn towards, let's say, meaning in a broader sense will benefit younger artists who can and the galleries who can speak about their work in terms other than, oh, it's really hot, or oh, it's really beautiful, or it's it's in the rather than
how does this artist represent the zeitgeist?
Yeah, exactly. How is this artist innovative within the art historical dialogue?
Yeah, I was going to say it's a real pity that, as you said, the drawback in a situation where there's more of an investment towards established artists is that up-and-coming younger artists do miss out, and there is sort of an idea of retrenching within the younger gallery sector, and there's many galleries that have been closing over the past few years, and it's obviously those younger galleries that have the highest costs, that have the highest risk, that have had to close or rethink and maybe partner with other galleries, which is I think even dangerous in terms of creativity and being able to support that creativity, because ultimately the market is about the artists, and if you can't support that, and it's the younger artists who do take that chance, or the younger galleries that do take that chance, that's a real pity. And I hope that this can change this year, at least a little bit, now that there's a bit more positivity in the market, I would say.
I think one of the issues contributing to this state of play is the fact that prices have been too high.
Very
right?
high.
Very high. For mid-range, or maybe you can tell me better, where do you think pricing has been wrong? And do you think that's really a large reason for why we're seeing this downturn in the ultra contemporary and
Yeah, I do think that there's been a systemic shift, definitely towards a correction of prices. And definitely there was a bubble, I would say, in that sense. Don't you agree?
I think that, I don't know if I would say it was wrong, but I would say that there was a lot of demand for a certain kind of art, and galleries wanted to profit off of that, but didn't really think about it long term. It's very hard to go back when you raise an artist's prices. In fact, it's impossible for a primary market gallery to price their living artists down. So it's there's no going back there. But then when that same artist, who is now let's say a mid-career artist, and is selling at auction for half, sometimes even less than what the primary markets are selling their work at, or what the original collector bought it at, that causes a lot of, let's say, disillusionment, and that affects also the psychology for buying, and particularly for buying contemporary.
But perhaps the lesson learned now is to not buy into the hype and to not push an artist beyond his limits, and time to create more and more and more to feed that frenzy, but have maybe a slower burn, because that ultimately is best for the market and best for the artist. And maybe this is what we can take away from that.
And I'm actually curious, just more personally, maybe Jelena could start. How does this manifest in your work? Do you have collectors saying to you, "Hey, listen, this artist is so hot," and do you see them falling into the trap, and how do you pull them out of it? Or are these not your clients at all? Or I feel like
I'm going to throw them under the bus. No, I have to say, most of my clients have a very particular personal collecting trope, and so they stick pretty clearly to what they want, like what the subject or thematic is. So they're thankfully not as taken by trends. But that being said, yes, they're always like, "Oh, have you heard of this artist?" And they'd like to know what's going on, just because it generates a lot of headlines. Like, the media is also in on this. This isn't just a gallery thing. So I definitely have. I have told them, why don't we wait? Why don't we wait for 6 months, a year? Tell me how you feel then. And we can find one then.
I think that's great advice.
Very honest. Very honest.
No, I know. I can imagine you being. I know you a little bit. I can imagine you just telling it straight, and taking
too straight.
A little too straight. But no, it's for their benefit, of course.
Yes,
of course.
To make great for the client relationships. Yeah. That's good. Everybody wins.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to give them bad advice, for sure.
No, definitely not. No, I mean, I think a client really hates to feel like
they've been taken for a ride.
She's overpaid. Yeah, like that would be, it's not the greatest feeling. It's also why, but it has also driven, I think, more collectors into the auctions. And people who generally would only buy at galleries, I think, are now looking at auctions as that in a way that competes with primary. I mean, this has been also talked about a lot, but I think that's going to grow. Also as a result of galleries pricing work a little too high. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, because we often hear kind of that in a climate where you need more thoughtful acquiring and collecting, that's the galleries are the space for that. But you're saying auctions are rising, they're attracting more collectors who are disillusioned by what's happening in the galleries, I guess, in the pricing. So how do we help rebuild that confidence, I guess? That's
a very good question. I think galleries, and I think they're doing this, are going back to a maybe older school approach of cultivating relationships with collectors and talking to them about artists, and this idea of collecting artists in depth that and following artists' careers from the beginning, I think could make a bit of a renaissance, I hope. So they can start that way, because what auctions don't have, what galleries do have, is discovering artists and being able to really guide. I mean, as advisors do, but they can also do this, and they used to do this much more when they didn't have to attend 10 fairs, for example, or have other,
Financial concerns.
Yeah, exact overhead is what I mean to say. So I think galleries can offer those kinds of more tailored, experiential, human services that perhaps that auctions can't.
The data in our report does suggest that in 2025 there was more interest in auctions, whereas in the year previous it was more in private sales. And then there was this very interesting actually editorial that we have, if you've read the report, that you'll see about these very private auctions, these very high-level, private, secretive auctions that don't get published, in fact, in our price database, which is, I think, the only drawback. But it's an interesting direction the market is taking.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that, and I mentioned them to you as well. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with these private auctions, or they're very secretive and they're very mysterious. So it's a great story for journalists, but they've been, I think the first one started around 2021. And unlike a private sale, which of course we're used to hearing a lot about, these are actual auctions, and they take place behind closed doors. And a select group of people are invited, and in some cases they're expected to bid. So I imagine, that will determine something about the outcome of the auction. But not all private auctions, you don't have to bid in all private auctions. So we don't know how successful they all are. But Christie's is doing very well with their private auctions, and I had some data here, but I think they've been selling works for they sold Frida Kahlo for $150 million, and these are also numbers that reporters got from secondhand, because this is all private information; it's not public. A Rothko for $195 million, a Van Gogh for $200 million, and again, these numbers are not in the ArtNet price database that I'm sure you all know very well.
I apologize.
Plug over there. And so it's described as the market going a little bit dark. And Jelena, what do you? Okay, you have something to say. I can see.
No. I think it was always dark, or it was always small and dark. And I think it's actually a great idea, because you only need two to make a high price, by bidders to make a high price. You really only need two at the highest level, or for the masterpiece market, the trophy market, like 50 million plus, let's say. The bidders are it's very thin up there. You for a lot, like you don't get that many bidders at that level anyway, and I think that this is a really nice way to get big collectors that can afford that kind of work incentivized. It makes it fun for them. Otherwise, it's much more fun to bid against your rivals than do a private sale through email or phone, I think. And if it's experiential, if there's like a little party or whatever, if you feel cool, it's even better. Like, so
I mean, it brings some movement into the market.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem I think of the past 3 or 4 years was that they were on the sell side, people were worried about submitting their works, and on the buy side, people were worried about spending money at that level in a geopolitical climate such that it's still is. So I think if you're in a system where it's dark, where the result is not going to be entered into our database, where it's not going to be made public, then the risk of embarrassment if the lock fails to sell kind of minimizes. And it kind of, gives a little bit more maybe freedom in choppy waters.
Yeah.
Essentially. And if that gives confidence and then translates also into the primary market and more into the open sales, great, fantastic, no? If it gives some movement.
I think I agree. Of course, as an art reporter, we like to have more transparency and we want to know what's going on.
I'm all about transparency, absolutely agree. But I'm also about market movements and, only the movement will then trickle down and translate into support of artists, I think, and galleries.
I guess I hope you're right. I think so.
So too.
But and also people are being pretty creative about how they're approaching. I mean, there are models that are a little more open and not entirely like the way Christie's does it, which I think is more the ultimate secretive private auction invitation you can get is with Christie's. But and Jelena, you were also mentioning that the private auction trend reflected as well this interest in the historic artists and the big names as well. So it kind of either is a consequence factor of that as well.
Yeah, I think it's another example of that, like so-called flight to quality. But it's not just at the top crazy $100 million level. I think that this interest in as Sophie said, even old masters, like going back further back in time, it goes across the board. And I think that people are realizing that there are works by artists in museums that one can buy at auction for less or approximately the same amount as a living artist. And I don't think that realization has dawned on people until somehow recently. And I'm talking especially about collectors that were generally collecting contemporary, who are now venturing, and I can see this definitely amongst my clients, who are now much more interested in the historical stuff. I was trying to pump the historical stuff years ago. No one wanted it.
Everybody wanted the hype, yeah.
You were ahead of the trend.
I mean, I don't know. But now they're way more interested. I mean, I had a collector, a client of mine who generally only buys living artists, bought a print by Dürer last year, for example, that I don't think he, that was sort of remarkable for him and his collection. He's very happy with it. But
do you think this juxtaposition of contemporary works with old master paintings is more something to do with a generational change, or more something to do with maybe a desire to feel safe with established older artists during the climate we're living through now?
When you say generational change, you mean like
the younger generation? Yeah.
Yes. I've noticed in speaking, not necessarily with my clients who actually range in age a lot, but and actually the younger ones are more interested in the historical works than my older collectors. And I just met, I was in, I don't know where I was, and I met this collector couple from New York. I think they're definitely under 30, and they were telling me about their interest in old masters and how they were wondering if this was the workshop of rather than the follower of. And I was shocked because I didn't think that younger collectors were interested in the historical material, but it warmed my heart. But
well, maybe on that note, Jelena and I were also talking a little bit about prints and multiples, which are an entryway for younger collectors because the price points tend to be lower. Have you guys seen, maybe Sophie, you could talk about, have you seen more interest in prints and multiples as a trend, or especially with younger collectors maybe? Or
I mean, the 2024 data suggests that in that year there were higher transactions at these lower price points, and that was really encouraging. And the median or the average price at these price points actually increased in 2024, but not in 2025, astonishingly. There were a lot of transactions, but the lower price points actually didn't do so well as the medium or higher price points. I'm not entirely sure what that could point towards. It could also be that perhaps people who are financially perhaps not as free, maybe don't want to spend in a climate such as the past year has been, and perhaps those that in the higher price brackets have a little bit more financial freedom, and that then translates into those high price sales.
Yeah.
That is my most plausible explanation for that. Is that what
That
you've been
makes
seeing?
sense. No, I don't personally. I love old master prints, and that is a world that not many of my clients are into. Actually,
that seems like it would be a perfect answer to this interest that your younger collectors have in old master artworks.
Yeah,
but
yes, but it's difficult because something like the old master print market requires a lot of knowledge it's almost like collecting watches. You have to know the different states made by the artist. There are fakes, there are condition issues, there are provenance issues. It takes a while to understand how the print market values a print. It's very different from how the general fine art market works for paintings, for example. And also contemporary collectors never think about, usually that are buying things from the studio or buying from primary galleries, aren't really thinking about issues like that. Or it's maybe just daunting to get into. And there isn't really, there are many wonderful old master print galleries scattered around the world, but it's definitely sort of a journey to go and try to get that knowledge.
That's where someone like you comes in perfectly, right?
I hope I
right? It's
be the
fantastic. They can rely on your knowledge.
is that why you were asking about it, or have you?
No,
okay.
No, that was why I was asking. I find old master prints which are variously categorized as prints made from the beginning of printmaking. So let's say the 15th century, the latter part of the 15th century, through the 19th. Now, that's old master print. It's a huge span of time,
We need an old master prints art fair, is what you're saying.
Well, there are
another art fair.
Yeah, no, we don't know. I don't think we need another one. No, there are some wonderful old master print dealers that exhibit at TEFAF and at
Such
other
a marvelous fair. You can really rely on them having such fantastic works.
No, certainly. But it's just not. It's just a new world for contemporary collectors, and I'm curious to see what will happen with that.
I think that it's going to be up to you. Something's going to happen. It's going to be up to advisors like yourselves and dealers to make something happen. It sounds like it's not quite.
Well, actually, that
goes
to a larger point of the fact that museums and the press really lost a power that they used to have in legitimizing art. The market has turned to be, or in a broad way, the legitimizing force. So in that way, you're right, I guess. Collectors and advisors have to get more knowledgeable.
Yeah, and social media has done a huge thing Like everybody can critique now. I think there's maybe less of a reliance on the traditional art critic, and
Yes.
that has definitely had an impact, I think,
don't
on the entire market.
Absolutely. Like, people used to read art forum reviews. In
Artnet magazine reviews.
Yeah. And I don't think I do not think, none of my clients are reading any kind of review and determining whether they like.
Like a peer-to-peer judgment now. Is this show good? Is this artist good? Like, what do you think? Like, are people posting about it on social? Is it being covered editorially? But not on a deep level, more on a on a breadth scale level.
Why do you think I get why people aren't reading art reviews, but why do you think institutions have lost some of their legitimacy?
Oh, they haven't. Sorry, not
they
legitimacy.
have. I mean, if I can
not
disagree
legitimacy,
here.
In terms of like
determining value.
Yeah, for or prompting a collector to buy. Yes, a museum show always helps the artist market a little bit, but it's not. It's really not the. It doesn't provide the kind of canonization as it did, and I would say in like the last 5-10 years that's been the case. That.
Do you have a sense of why? Sorry, or what?
They don't, because collectors don't care.
Well, perhaps because the motivations for why an artist is getting a museum show is not the same now as it used to be.
That's also a good point.
You know, it could be political. It could be because the donor is pushing for this artist. You know, there's so many reasons why this might happen. I mean, in previous generation, I want to say my father's generation, when they donated money to a museum, they said, okay, here's amount X, you do with it what you think is best. And now I think if in terms of philanthropy, the younger generation or our generation wants to say, okay, I want to know exactly where this money is going to, and I might actually want to dictate where this money is going to, and then that dictates the museum exhibition, and so it gets skewed maybe a little bit. Maybe that's a trust issue.
And the common gallery practice that I think Marion Goodman actually kind of spearheaded of
buy one, donate one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Buy one, donate
Get one
one.
free.
And so museums are showing donated work from, these dealers that have done that in order to acquire something from.
Yeah.
But do collectors understand? I guess they do. They're abreast of that, and so that contributes to the problem. Yeah.
No, I think that is definitely a factor.
Though I do see, if I look at the data, let's say, for example, Warhol, Basquiat, or Richter, or Rothko, and you can see definitely like there's a bump where there has been a museum show that kind of translated into the market. You can definitely tell that happens, which I'm sure is a good thing.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that museums have. I want to. It's just that they're not as instrumental in
determining value,
canonizing an artist as they used
Absolutely.
they used to be, and yeah, that's.
I think that's really interesting and something to keep an eye on very closely. I don't know how much. I think I'm going to move on to, okay, we're fine. But we've touched on this, fair fatigue as a trend, and we're at a fair. So Jelena said, can we talk about fair fatigue at a fair? Is that okay? Are you guys fatigued?
Probably.
But knowing Guillaume, who runs the fair, Guillaume Pins, I think that he would absolutely want us to take it apart. Because
this is an interesting fair because it's actually hyper local, and it's a nice idea for Paris, especially because there are so many small galleries here. So it really centralizes all of them, and you're able. It's quite nice. It's unlike an Art Basel where it's so international, that's so global. Here it's very, very local. It's almost the opposite. It's cute.
Maybe that really sums it up. It's not really fair fatigue. I think it's kind of like the fatigue of seeing the same in every place.
That's right.
Kind of like you see a Chanel or a Dior at every airport. It's like it's like you would like to go to a place and actually discover something that's local to that area and be inspired and be surprised. rather than, you know, go to the other side of the world and see the same thing you probably get at home. You know, and that's probably where the fatigue comes from.
No, absolutely.
I mean-
And I think there's just generally after COVID, like people just don't want to fly as much. I don't know why.
Well, yeah, now
the-
everything's much more
there's-
expensive, so I get it now.
And yes, it's lost its novelty. I could say personally from when I started my advisory, like 12 years ago. I can't do the math. More, okay. I was really. It was exciting to go to these
Yeah.
fairs in far-flung areas of the world, and it still is. But when you see the same galleries at every location, it gets a little
Repetitive.
yeah.
Yeah, I think when I plan over the year and think about which fair I would like to attend, and you know, we all have busy schedules, busy lives, and private situations and things. Like I look at fairs or biennials that are fresh. I don't want to go to the same thing and see the same thing all over again. I'm going for a new place that I can discover. Like last year I went to Seoul, to Free Seoul, because then I've never been to the country. I can discover the culture. Same with the Biennale of Islamic Art in Jeddah, because I'd never been to to Jeddah, to Al Ula, and this year also with Doha, I took the risk to go there. I don't know, I was worried I might be stuck there, but worse places. And I think on the list is also going to 154, for example, the African Art Fair, and really looking for something new and discovering the culture and using it as an opportunity to broaden the mind and the horizons rather than seeing the same.
100%.
Maybe that's the fatigue of seeing the same thing all over.
Yeah.
And actually, the last Art Basel UBS report actually did say that regional, local transactions were rising.
Yeah.
For, I think, the first time, and compared to international fairs and international kind of art events. So we're seeing more of these local regional events, maybe in response to exactly what you're describing.
It also harmonizes with the political movement towards countries becoming more nationalistic.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I don't want to say it in the negative sense. I don't want to, give any kind of weighting to that. But it does kind of. There seems to be a symbiosis there, in a way. If you know what I mean. What do you think?
Yeah. What sort of local events do you have any in mind that you were?
I think it was, well, the report called them local events, and I took that to mean fairs like this.
Oh, okay.
But this fair is obviously open to international artists and voices as well, but that's what I interpreted that to mean. It's more regional and local.
I mean, that's an interesting point that Sophie's making, that that maybe it derives somewhat from this interest in national, not patriotism, but like showing off a certain culture or a certain
what
place.
Saudi Arabia, I think, is going for to
local.
say, this is our culture.
It's also
you
interesting.
should travel here for this.
Right.
This is what defines us. And I think that's beautiful. I think it's great.
I mean, France does. I mean, we all do. It's like a hallmark of tourism, and I think that will grow stronger.
And I think there's a balance that I know that this fair wants to strike, which is, as I was saying, to remain open to international galleries and artists and regions, but highlight the local a little bit more. And because, as I think, Sophie, you started to allude to this, it would be a shame if these models became kind of protectionist or provincial or like closed to,
No, that's definitely what we're saying. It's more like highlighting the positive of a place. Rather than internationalizing it too much.
And when you were in Doha at Art Basel, Qatar, did you feel, you were saying you felt there was a lot of art on display and examples of the local culture. Was there that balance as well of international
I feel that they did a really good job of really
Yeah.
highlighting galleries and artists from that area.
Yeah.
I thought the curation was great.
Mhm.
There was like one artist per gallery.
Yeah.
And did you go?
I
No,
didn't
you
go.
didn't. But it was. I thought I
But-
thought it was very fresh and very easy on the eye. Very well
people
curated.
liked it. I mean,
It was-
I
yeah.
heard good things, and they liked this like solo
Presentation, yeah.
of one artist per booth.
And obviously for the gallery, it's a risk. Like,
I
what
think
if they
it's a
take
great
an
idea
artist?
in general to just to do that because fairs have also become pedagogical moments for a lot of collectors. It's a lot of collectors will go to a fair for the first time. They haven't really collected before and would like to learn about artists that way. So the solo booth or the duo booth becomes helpful in that in pedagogy in pedagogy.
Great. What about I wanted to talk a little bit about women collectors as a trend. And what you are seeing, what you are observing. We talk a lot about women artists on the rise and rediscovering recognized women artists throughout history. But what about women collectors? What are you noticing in this category, and would you call it a rising trend?
I can't. I don't know if in my little universe, I don't see more women collectors than before. I personally, there were always a good amount of them around. And
I actually had a discussion about this recently. I don't remember where, but where it's like the general idea was women collectors are not underrepresented. That there's definitely a lot of them,
Yeah.
but they're not highlighted as much. Similarly to the way that women artists don't get the same attention as, or still don't, as male artists. When I do some private dealing with my family, and oftentimes, you'd offer somebody a work, and he'll say, "I have to ask my wife." You know,
oh, well, that's
things like this, and then in the end you realize, wait a minute, but it's not him that's making the decisions. It's his wife that's making all the decisions. About the collecting. But on the other hand, jokes aside, I have met some really great female collectors. For example, from Saudi Arabia, Basma Sulaiman is one of the foremost collectors from the region. There's a Colombian collector living in Madrid, Lili Scarpetta, who has a fantastic collection. No, there's definitely maybe they're more subtle about it, more quiet about it.
Yeah.
There's maybe less ego involved, which is a very female thing. It's very sort of thoughtful. There's not really, I think, the need so much to present what you have, and
Yes.
and maybe it's a very, very, just very feminine way of being elegant about it.
No, I like that. I mean, I agree. Also, with with collecting couples, they're a category in their own, maybe, and that's where, and they with couples, it's also difficult to advise couples because they play good cop, bad cop against.
And then you don't want to get in between their marriage.
Well, definitely not. But so that's a. But yes, But to go to your question, I haven't noticed like I don't know, but then again, I just always thought that I just have always dealt with great women collectors. They've always been around. So I don't know where the media is picking up on this, but
there's been quite a lot of
this has
media.
been a subject.
Yes,
Yeah.
attention around this. There was the Making Their Mark conference recently about women collectors and women artists. And a New York Times article talked about an increase in women collectors as a category, and that they are expected to continue to increase.
Yeah, the AWITA report
Yes.
that ArtNet actually publishes with the Association of Women in the Arts reports that women collectors make up more than half of the collecting power globally, actually, but maybe just not quite as loud. I don't know. But definitely a force to be reckoned with, I think. And maybe also collectors that might take more risk.
That is what so far I guess we're seeing is that women tend to be a little bit more open-minded as collectors and take more risks. I mean, this is according to the New York Times and the Art Basel UBS and the report you mentioned. So, but I guess we'll see how this evolves. And maybe, Jelena, you've noticed more of a trend in collecting women artists, because that is huge.
For a while. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's been 10 years now.
Yeah.
That's been quite.
And now there's the old masters women artist twist to
there's
that.
also that. Yes, but I with these trends, while I'm happy that women artists are receiving more market attention, and museums certainly are collecting more women artists. I have direct experience because with Marie Laurencin, I've been very happy to see how she's been received by both museums and more contemporary collectors. However, once museums do collect these women artists, it kind of sits in storage. So it's up to, I don't know, who to keep that alive.
To keep the conversation going, you mean?
Yeah.
I think the other risk is to make sure that these artists are really collected because they're inherently
good. Yes,
not because they're supposed to be part of
100%.
some
I
statistic.
completely agree. I completely agree.
That's another a challenge. I remember I ran at MoMA. I was going to in New York. I was visiting the museum, and I ran into an art critic who shall remain nameless, and I asked her if she's there for this show. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Ed Ruscha, and she's like, "No, I don't write about old white men." I thought, wow, okay, you don't want to. I think it's also that's the other extreme. I think Yeah, no, I mean, and I think there's so many amazing women artists, and they should be appreciated for the importance they have.
Absolutely.
Speaking,
well,
not as part of a statistic.
Actually, speaking of Marie Laurencin, that was her view.
Yeah.
She didn't, unlike others at her time, like Tamara Lampica, who is a big market star.
I love her. Yeah, fantastic.
But she did present herself as a woman artist, and of course Laurencin did as well. I mean, her subject was purely feminine, or that's not the right word. It was about being a woman and the representation of women. But she never sold her work as something buy me because I'm a woman artist. Like, that was anathema to her. She would write about that. And I think that is something that we should be careful of when collecting.
Making a statistic out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Or pigeonholing it.
And I think that, again, going back to some of the statistics, there's still definitely a lot of progress to be made in terms of parity. And even if we're seeing this huge rise in interest in women artists, it's not close to what we're seeing with like the top selling male artists, for example. Also in galleries, the major blue chip galleries are also not selling as much work by women artists for as high a price either, on average.
I'd love to kind of take a closer look at, maybe I should do it in terms of research, the difference between female gallerists and male gallerists in terms of how they choose the artists that they work with and how successful they are and the steps that they take for this. I mean, I think that would be an interesting, let's say, research to do, because there's several fantastic gallerists, female gallerists out there, and I think they need to be paid more attention.
There was actually just a few days ago, in time for this fair, there was a study by an author and curator, Louise Turin, and César Lévy, who is a gallerist. He's the founder of the 193 Gallery. And they looked at Paris galleries and they asked these questions, and 34.8% of artists in established Paris galleries were women.
Oh, well, that's good. That's
which is
encouraging.
good.
That's
Which is
encouraging.
yeah. But the kind of big guns, the larger galleries, were pretty far below that. I won't name all the names now, but it's been reported. And
But go and look at the report, please, everybody.
and then the younger galleries, of course, had a lot more women than that average, and so and the more experimental galleries did. So it was interesting to see that, where are the risks being made, and I guess
It's usually the younger galleries
Yeah.
taking those risks.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. But women artists, I guess, are still
Not
considered.
not classifying women as risk, but generally
Yeah.
in young artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that's also reflective of the time that we're living in. It's back, in 1920, to be a woman artist was not that. It was really, 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 really hard, and much harder than it is now. So I think that also narrows the kind of pool, and the
Absolutely.
big galleries are also showing art that's has a much higher price tag anyway, that's probably historical and probably established, so they're just not going to have that many women artists on their roster.
The galleries showing more modern art definitely brought down the average.
Sure. Yeah,
For
that
sure.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even some of the large, very contemporary galleries, there's a little bit of a bro feeling
I see.
happening still. But again, maybe that's all changing, and it looks like it is on the
I think
road.
so. I want to be positive about this.
Let's see. We might pretty soon go to questions. I just maybe wanted to ask quickly about. Well, there are two things. I don't know if you want to talk about this, but
Yeah.
in France, art advisors are not as common a phenomenon
Yeah.
as in
Is that?
the
I
U.S.
Oh, yes.
That's why I had no idea.
Yeah.
Very. It's you're a spotted creature in the wild.
Really? That's so
Yeah,
interesting. Why do you think that is?
So I have a few ideas or a few theories. Because in America, in New York, ground zero for art advisors, I think that there's a lot over there, and also in LA where I built my business. But in Europe, I think there's actually, this is my theory. It has to do with that also has to do with the different European conception of copyright law and how to protect artwork is different from the sort of more Anglo approach. Europeans recognize that a bit of the artist's soul is in an artwork, and I'm being kind of dramatic here, but they have a regime of protection called the droit moral, the moral right, and that is something that the Anglo world does not have. America does not really have. It's more economically based. And I think that informs how people collect art, because they think this is something that you do as to sort of fulfill your soul. And that's a more personal, private activity. Maybe it's also linked to aristocracy. Maybe it's also linked to leisure activity. And
it's less of an investment.
It's less of a profession. It's less of a career. It's more of a leisure activity. It's more of like a personal passion. So the idea of bringing someone in and giving them 10% of the sale price seems like very crude, or maybe unnecessary, or I don't know. I think that generally they don't. Art advisors don't have a very good reputation here.
But it's a rising trend, which is why I brought it up.
I see.
We're seeing more art
advisors.
As
global. Yes, I think that as the globalization extends and the services industries pioneered by America extend to Europe, you will see definitely more. Definitely, there are more art advisors here than there were 5 years ago. Definitely.
When I speak to Germans about investing in art and looking at art or buying art for passion, but with an investment view, the reaction is oftentimes, especially the more seasoned generation, of what? No, you can never buy art as an investment or look at the price. If you love the work, then you have to buy it, you know, and regardless of the price. And I've actually had a prominent German art advisor on a panel tell the audience, no matter what the price, don't look at it, just buy it if you love it. And that's
Wow,
like, for me, I think that's really noble. I mean, I think it really is, you know, but the same way I think you wouldn't buy a house or a car or any other high value investment, you know, without looking at the resale value or the location or whatever it may be.
No.
I think it's clever to check everything, to make sure that, you know, if worse comes to worse, or for the insurance value, what you're getting yourself into. And that is a very, I think, in any case, I'm German, that's why I'm bringing it up, a German thing, to be like, no, just buy it because you love it, don't look at the price, you know, and just do that.
Yeah,
Which is, it's an interesting approach. Same with guarantees, third-party guarantees.
Oh, at auction? Yeah.
Oh my God, in Germany, it's like, no, you can't do that, because the idea is that a third-party guarantee will then skew with the inherent value of the work as present, because then, you know, it will be bought, you know. Whereas in, I think, the US, it's definitely something that you do frequently, and in China, without a third-party guarantee, like, the work probably wouldn't be sold, you know. So it's like, there's so many cultural differences.
Yes.
Absolutely wild. And I think that also goes into market growth. Germany was the only market, I think, that actually had a retraction in 2025, whereas France grew, the UK grew, you know, the US grew. China was a little bit difficult as well. But I think it's also that kind of approach to the suspicion towards advisory, perhaps, but also art market prices and investment practices.
No, I agree with that. For sure, yeah.
How do you deal with this sort of suspicion that because you're based here as well, and I have such a different view of, you know.
Most of my clients are American.
Okay.
Living in Paris?
No, have apartments here, but they don't all live here, no. But no, I think that being said, generally, also, you need an art advisor if your budget is of a certain level as well. And Americans generally have a higher budget to spend than Europeans. So
maybe we could just conclude, because it's been an hour, sorry. Are there any market trends that you hope to see die by the end of, or go away? What is something that, I thought we could, not to turn negative, but there's something a trend that you are happy to see.
Well, I think it is going away. The now sales. I think.
Why is that something you'd want to?
Just because it's not so interesting to me. I typically like seeing things that I work at auction, and I do think that galleries should focus on showing and promoting and nurturing young art. So when I think it's better that they do that and not the auction houses. Yeah.
I see. What do I want to have die?
I don't know. It's a
Die
hard question.
is too dark of a word. A trend that you see that you don't love, and that you would be happy to see turn into something, evolve into something else. Maybe we can think about that we can all think about that for next time.
Maybe gallery press releases can be not written by ChatGPT in the future.
Absolutely.
And maybe they can be a little more engaging.
I could not agree more.
I don't know. No, I'm being mean. But on average, I don't think anyone's reading the press release anymore.
I think this has also been dying in a sense. Sometimes you do encounter a sort of arrogance in some areas of the market, and I think that's counterproductive. If there's, let's say, students or emerging collectors, young collectors coming to you with questions about prices or part an artist, like, Talk to them,
Absolutely.
teach them. These are your next generation of art lovers. You can't expect culture to survive if you're not going to educate the young. So I think, or help them at least come to a stage where they can, together, like direct them towards what maybe
Yes.
you think they should be buying.
No, it reminds
like
me.
friendliness towards the young collector.
Even
Absolutely.
collect very cool dealers like Colin DeLand in the 90s would host art history classes on the weekends for collectors.
Oh, amazing!
And I think it was like a nominal fee or whatever it was. But the fact was that he did it. I don't really see galleries doing that. And I mean, maybe it's now the job of art advisors to do that, but it's important.
It really
Somebody
is.
needs to talk to people about art.
Because like oftentimes, I often hear people that are from unrelated industries who have a curiosity.
Yes, and
They're
that
like, "Oh, I don't know
curiosity
if I can
is
just go into
precious.
that gallery. Will you come with me? I'm a little bit worried, And that's something I'd like to go with. I want people
I
to be
agree.
confident,
Well,
you
that's
know?
that's
Go
sort
there,
of my
you'll be-
job.
People will be friendly to you. Yeah.
And I love the idea of art history classes or talks in galleries. Maybe
I mean,
we
idea.
can start something here now.
So, no, it needs to start happening. I mean, that is sort of my job, but on a larger scale, it needs to happen. And what I would like to see grow is curiosity, and the nurturing of that curiosity.
Yeah, it's a good way to end.
Yeah, I think that's great. Are there any questions from you guys out there in English or in French? I think that was it. But thank you guys so much for
Thank you.
Okay. This has been really fun.